Resurgent India Knowledge Series presents Virtual Session on Key Sectoral Expectations from the Union Budget 2024. Moderator Mr. Ashish Agrawal, Director, Resurgent India Limited. Eminent speakers: Ms. Sandhya J, Group CFO, Narayana Health; Ms. Nikita Bose, National Head Government Business, Invoice Smart; Ms. Ritu Prakash Singh, Senior Economist and Head MSME Research, Ugro Capital.
Yeah. Good evening, friends. Friends, I'm Ashish Agrawal from Resurgent India Limited. This today's webinar, which we have organized, I think this is more than 150th webinar, the entire knowledge series of Resurgent India. Since COVID, we have tried to bring various topics through this webinar knowledge series to our participants, which are joining. Those are joining us from the different part of the country, the globe also. So friends, first of all, I would like to welcome all of you this today's webinar. I would like to welcome all our panel speakers. And this is our privilege that we have all women panel speakers today. So in today's webinar, we will discuss on the expectations from the budget of this new budget in this year, the final budget of this year. So friends, you see this, we have already seen the interim budget in the month of February. This will be the first budget of the government of India, the new term. And this will also be presented by our Honorable Finance Minister. She is also woman. So we believe that there will be many announcement on the women development or the well-being of the women on the budget. But before that, I would like to just give you some outlook what we think the Resurgent India. So this budget, we hope that this will be mainly for the debt and deficit consolidation. If you see in the last year, there was an advantage of some 20 bips in the fiscal deficit, whatever the revised targets were there. This is because of the huge borrowings. So the lot of surplus is there that can be an advantage in this year. On the second aspect, if we see this, the revenue windfall. So if you have seen the income tax or the whatever the direct tax or indirect tax collections, the numbers are huge, and the RBI dividend, whatever the money has been given to Government of India, 2 lakh crore plus. So this is another advantage for us that we'll have a lot of money in this budget. And the third thing is that this inclusion of the bonds in the JP Morgan index, which will ease out many things, yield on the government securities, then the availability of funds. A lot of new investors will come from the other part of the world to invest in our corporate or in our government bonds, government securities. So that's another advantage. And then the fourth thing is that the SMP has revised the outlook positive. So there are chances of increasing in the improvement in the sovereign rating also. So this can be another attraction to the global investors towards India. So these are the positive factors for us in the overall this year budget, this year point of view. But if you see from the expectations of the budget, we see this should be a consumption-led or the welfare-oriented budget, where women, youth, farmers, and the poor will be on the focus, where this will be more on employment generation, boosting the household income, and increasing the farmer income will be the focus area, or increasing the household savings also. This can be another aspect of this budget. Another aspect can be related support. So like MSP on all crops, which can be another aspect because there was a lot of buzz in the last year on the MSP side. So government will consider on it. Then the capex and infra spending. So as you know that since last 5 6 years, the government is spending a lot on the capex and infra. This will again remain in the same, I think, pace, and rather it can have the more boost up on that side also, which is required for the growth of the country. And the last thing is the manufacturing push, actually, if you see, because it is required for the employment generation, which is the major key challenge for our country. We have large number of youth, but they need employment. So they need entrepreneurship also. So this can be so manufacturing can help in that employment. So the PLI can be one of the area where the government will increase the allocation on PLI. They will include more sectors which are more actually related to the employment generation. Actually. So that can be the focus of the labor-oriented PLI sectors, and the indigenization like Make in India will also help. They'll try to reduce the import burden actually. So these are the some of the areas which I think will be there in the budget. These 3 4 key aspects. But definitely we have our panel speaker. They are experts in that. Actually, all panel speakers are having very good background, working in various organizations. Panel speakers, and they got a lot of awards also. So I believe this will be a very good discussion, more interactive for all of us. Before inviting my panel speakers today, I would like to just run a small PPT, which might give you some more information or some idea on the sectoral expectations from the budget for all of us. So if you see from the sectoral point of view, there are some key sectors which are very, very important to keep in mind. So one is healthcare, the renewable energy, the climate related areas, emerging industries. These can be some of the areas which will be MSMEs is another aspect actually. So if you see, these are the allocations in the major schemes by the government of India. This Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Development Guarantee Scheme. So this allocation increased from 50,000, 60,000 crore to 85,000 crore. And the production PLI scheme, again, from 44 to 64, 62,000 crore, almost 40% increase. So like this, solar power actually, Ayushman Bharat, and these are the various schemes which allocation already increased in these schemes. Yeah, next. So infra, as I told you, that infra will be the major, I think, thrust area for the government. And the expectation from the budget, in the interim budget, government has showcased that there will be capital expenditure something around 11 lakh crore, which is something increase in the 10 lakh, 11% from the earlier allocation. So there will be some major sector in the infra, which will be the rail corridors and the energy and the port connectivity, and this Udan scheme also. They will extend the Udan scheme in the other regional connectivity areas. Then the expectation on the budget is the reduced interest rate. I think this monetary policy, which is, I think we hope that there will be repo cut. So this will help to the boost up to the infrastructure sector. And this, if you see, that's the other allocations will be related to the automatic train technology, and also these are some of the areas where we think there will be the more allocation and the expectations of the budget in the infrastructure. But there can be number of other issues which can be taken up, or which will be taken up by the government of India or the finance minister in the budget. Yeah, next sector we can next slide. Yeah, Ayush, can you run the next slide? So healthcare, which is a very, very important sector for all of us. Here we see there'll be the more coverage on the Ayushman Bharat. and the ABPMJY to cover tax-paying individuals. So this can be a new thing for all of us. The tax-paying individuals can also be covered, and the senior citizens will also be covered that to any income level, but definitely tax-paying individuals can cover up to 15 lakhs of income. So this can be another aspect which will be there in the budget. GST, because in healthcare, the GST is there on the healthcare insurance premium. So this is a demand of the industry. So this can be one of the area where there can be some reduction on that. And the research and development activities, so there may be more allocation on that, or the concessional rate on the section 115 BAB. So these are some of the area, but we have the sector expert with us. So she will be in a better position to guide us what can be the expectation from the budget. Yeah, next slide. Then the startups, I think you know that we have more than 1 lakh startups in the country, and the startups are helping in many ways. They are solving a lot of problems of the country. You see that today everybody is having UPI. This is because of the startup of fintech. So there are like when we are using the Uber, Ola taxis, and also there are hundreds examples are there in the startup space where there is a big change in the overall service delivery these areas. So the startups are also having a lot of expectations from the government, maybe reform in the ease of taxation, with parity in the taxing unlisted and listed entities. So this can be the another area in the startup space. GST, reduction of GST rate to 12% for startups to foster growth. It may happen. This is our expectation. Then the funding access, although the government has a lot of channels for the funding to the startups, but this taxation benefit may be given to the angel investors, and the regulatory simplification, and through AIF approval and all these things can be. So these are our thought actually. It may or may not be covered in the budget. This can come in the through some other way of regulation and notification. Next slide. If we see MSMEs, I think we have 6 crore plus MSMEs in India. This MSME portal, this Udam Aadhaar has done drastic registrations in the, I think more than 2 crore registrations are there now. So now we know that these 2 crore MSMEs which are already registered. Otherwise, the estimation is that 6 crore plus MSMEs are there, and they need a lot of support because they are the backbone of the country in terms of employment, export in many areas. So MSMEs will have the more allocation. So ease of doing business can be one of the uh, 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 area where the government can come out with some upgrading the GSTN system, integrating e-invoicing and e-way bills. PLI scheme for MSME, I think this is a big demand from the industry, which will help to reduce the import and generate more jobs actually. So this can be a new thing in the overall budget. Employment linked incentive schemes. So as you know that employment is one of the major challenge for our government or the for our youths also. So there can be some incentive schemes for the MSMEs where they are employing more people. They will have some more incentive or some incentives for that. Then the extension of overdue classification. I think we have sector expert here, Rituji. She will also help us to know from the NBFC point of view, from the lending point of view. This demand is, I think, since last 3 4 years, that MSME nature of business is not like that. They are getting steady revenue every month or every quarter, and their payments are also get stuck because of many reasons. In the large corporate, government has come out with the strict 45-day rule also, but it is not helping. So this classifying on NPH from 90 days to 180 days, actually, this can be a major boost to the MSMEs or the lending community actually, because many times the lenders are very tight on to lending MSMEs because they are not getting this advantage of the extended NPA classification. So if it can be done, I think there can be more liberal funding to the MSMEs. Reason being, then the many of the MSMEs which are unable to pay on the 90 days possibility. they can get that money also. Adoption of modern technology, there will be some more expenditure on that also. Yeah, next slide. Renewable sector as climate change is one of the major concern, not for India, even for the globe. As you know, this global warming in Delhi, because I am based out of Delhi, you see the temperature was 52 degrees centigrade in this summer, which was unbelievable for all of us. So how we can see the future that if it will be like that, there can be a possibility where the living condition may be very, very difficult. So it is uh, important for all of us that the government thrust should be on the renewable energy sector, which can help to some extent to reduce this global warming. And as Resurgent India, we are very, very focused on the green financing or the renewable energy sector, where we hope that there will be the lot of new things will come. So the rooftop solar uh, uh, scheme which had been announced in this budget, actually in this interim budget. So government will increase maybe some allocation on that. GST, reduce GST on renewable energy component from 18% to 5%. I think this is important actually, because when we want to increase the footprint of the renewable energy in the country, this can be a great help to the sector. Then the export regulations. So this can be another area where the government will consider some of the relaxation of the export regulations also. And next slide. Affordable housing. The government motive is that they want a house for everybody, pakka house to everybody. So in this mission, already this government has allowed or announced this 2 crore more houses over next 5 years under PMAY. So they'll this is one of the I think major thing, and the middle income housing also the government has announced there's some incentive for that. So what we hope that in this budget there will be increased tax benefit in the interest rate payment of interest on the home loan. So this can help more and more buyers of the home, and they can get the tax advantage. Then update affordable housing definition. So they will include more, I think, the bigger size houses also, some little bigger size houses also on that. And the reviving credit scheme actually, which has expired in 2022. So this can help us to boost up this sector also. So friends, these are some of the areas where we are trying to, because we cannot cover all areas in 1 hour actually. So we have covered those sectors which are very, very important from the economy point of view. And now I would like to invite my panel speakers. I hope that whatever the expectations which we think as Resurgent India, some might be agreed of, some might be there in the budget, but not necessary that all will come in the budget actually. But we have good panel where all women panel speakers are there, and you see that our parliament also, I think currently this year, I think most 10% women are there in the overall MP list actually. So for me, there is a very difficult situation today. I cannot say women first or ladies first actually. So, but it's good that the women are there in the economic discussions, and they are also looking some expectations from the budget. So, friends, we have Sandhya ji, who is the CFO of Narayana Health. So first of all, Sandhya ji, I would like to welcome you in this panel. Then we have Ritu ji, Ritu Prakash Singh ji. She is the head of strategy and economist, chief economist in the company called Igro Capital. She is having a lot of awards and other things in his profile. So welcome to you, Ritu ji, for joining with us. Then we have Nikita Bose ji. She is the national head for government business in a company or in an organization, Voice Smart. She is also having a lot of awards by seeing her profile. And she works on the startups and MSME and other areas. So welcome to Nikita ji, this panel.
Thank you.
And we would like to thank you to all of you for joining with us at the very short notice. This shows your interest in the economy and the budget expectations. So, Rituji, I would like to invite you for your deliberation. So, if you can help us to understand more on the MSME side, and this we see a specific question from you that currently, if you see that 27% of women in India have access to the formal credit actually. And what do you think that how can policy reforms and regulatory measures be designed to facilitate easy access to alternative forms of finance for women-led MSME? So how the government can work out some policies and the regulation where the women should get more and more funding at the not only funding actually the funding at the right time at the right cost also, because cost is one of the major aspects also. And we have seen that microfinance is a very successful story in the country. In last 20 years, if you have seen, more than 4 crore of, I think more than 5 crore women got this advantage and they have grown. I've seen personally, I've gone to the field where I've seen the center meetings and all. When I was asking from one of the women that what is the help you're getting from this funding, she said, not only funding, I'm getting the respect in my family actually. So these are the areas which I think government has done, and a lot of new things have happened. And so from this women point of view, the financing point of view, what is your take on that actually? So over to you, Rituji.
Thank you, Ashish ji. So before coming to that specific question, I would like to just share some data to get the audience to know about the how what the thing of the women entrepreneurs in India, what the position of that. So there are roughly around 6 crores MSME in India. Out of that, 20% is the woman MSMEs. And if we go by the Udyam registration, then 3 crores have been done the Udyam registration, and again roughly around 19-20% are the women led entrepreneurs. And in Ugro also we have seen a surge in the first generation women entrepreneurs since last 2-3 years, and now our total portfolio, out of the total portfolio, 10% are the women-led entrepreneurs who are the first in their family, first generation. So I think it's a good growth, and the women are coming up in the terms of business and MSMEs, and these are all possible by the government policies and schemes which they are coming up with year by year, so to support the women's. And yes, I agree that alternative finance for women-led MSMEs are facilitating easy access, and the policy reforms can be focused on creating targeted credit guarantee schemes and subsidized interest rates, especially for specifically curated for the women entrepreneurs. And in this way, the collateral requirements can be reduced and the cost of capitals can decline. And if we talk about the regulatory measures, then this can include the mandating a certain percentage of MSME lending by banks and NBFCs to be directed towards the women-led businesses. And if the documentation can be more simplified and the digitization of the application processes can be made, then it would be easier for the woman to access the formal credit channels, because a lot of section of the MSMEs are still operating under the informal. So the efforts of our NBFCs and the banks are to get them from the informal sector credit to the more formalized credit. So I think if we simplify the documentation and make them aware about the document flow and how they can improve the quality of their collaterals, then they would be easily get an access to the formal credit channels. And one thing what I also feel that there is a lack of training and awareness among the MSMEs, be it a man or a woman. There is in the general whole MSME segment, we can see that there is lack of awareness about these schemes and what the benefits they can get if we do the registration on the Udyam registration and other things. So I think provided training and mentorship programs to build the financial literacy and business skills would be a great help for the women entrepreneurs. And the banks and NBFCs would be encouraged if can be encouraged to set up a dedicated MSME financing divisions, which has a specialization in the underwriting process again for the women's, because these are the things which are common for the men's and women's both MSMEs entrepreneurs, but the women's, because the percentage is much smaller and they are coming up and they are doing better day by day. So I think that if these things can be implemented, then the women entrepreneurs, we can see a good surge in the numbers of the women entrepreneurs. And again, the tax incentives can be provided to them, credit guarantees to financial institutions that can meet the targeted lending thresholds, and leverage digital platforms and fintech solutions can be can improve the reach and accessibility of the financial services. So Ashish ji, these are the things which I think that these will give really a good boost to the women entrepreneurs.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So you are saying training is one of the important aspect also.
Yes.
Maybe if the training can be provided, I think this can help in the
Right.
growing the business also. And the cost of capital is another aspect which is very, very important actually. So thank you, Rituji. I'll come back to you all again after the other panel discussion. So, Sandhya ji, you are the CFO of Narayana Health and you know the sector very well actually. And we were discussing also. So, what do you think that what specific measures are and reforms are necessary for the technological adoption in the India's healthcare? So this technology adoption in the India's healthcare, I think this will help to boost up this sector also. I think the medical records and digitization of these all information can have the history of the people also. So your views are important for us. So please give your view on that.
Sure, sure. I think we need to start this discussion with some context setting on why India is so ripe for digital disruption. India actually lags major economies in terms of healthcare spending. There is data that says that India has witnessed the highest healthcare inflation in the world over the past years. And the other aspect is that India has the highest chronic disease burden. India has NCDs at 58%. India has the second largest diabetic population, mostly untreated. And the other side of it is we have maybe about 1.2 beds per 1,000 people. The WHO recommendation is 5. So, which means that in some way the demand, supply, access, this entire equation is not adding up. The best way to make all of this work is you look at the other side of what is India's strength. It's really the digital revolution. We have 600 million smartphone users. If we have to disrupt a market of the size and scale of India, I think digital is the only way. So now coming to then how tech plays a role. One part is digital health. So online consultation, e-pharmacy, digital disease life cycle management. It allows the country to scale its healthcare reach without having the physical infrastructure to be able to deliver that healthcare. So that is one aspect of it. And I'm not going to labor on that too much because it's very self-explanatory and a lot has been spoken on that. But I want to focus on what the government is doing on the digital health charter. The phase one, I think, where really the government took the biggest step was the Arogya Setu app and the COVID app, which launched during COVID. The Arogya Setu app, I think, had about 200 million downloads. And 2 billion vaccines were delivered through the COVID platform when like modern countries like US were doing manual cards. So we really were a path-breaking leader in terms of digitization. Then the country took it forward. The phase two was really the e-Sanjeevani program, which was the national telemedicine program. It has served, I think, more than 100 million patients and almost more than 200,000 people have been onboarded. So this coupled with the PMJ program, which is also managed digitally, which covers about 500 million people, I think the backbone for digital health has been laid. Now the next step, which is what you were speaking about, which is ABDM. Now, this is bringing the existing healthcare ecosystem online. So there is a unique digital ID that is created for everybody. It's called a ABA ID, now Ayushman Bharat Health Account. This really democratizes health for every individual, because all aspects of the health value chain then comes in digitally. People's healthcare records are fungible, they're accessible, and I have control over my healthcare records on how I allow people to use my healthcare records. So this is really the biggest breakthrough that is coming through, and I'm really expecting that in the current budget, the government will bring a lot of thrust into developing the digital health aspect, which is both in terms of growing the digital penetration of healthcare, but also in terms of Ayushman Bharat digital mission. The last aspect of it is healthcare organizations like us and many other private organizations are also heavily investing in digitizing the patient journey, improving patient experience, improving the quality of care. And we are investing in how to use technologies like artificial intelligence, etc., to be able to do more predictive and better care. So all of this, I think, will come together very nicely in our country. And definitely, I feel that we are over the next 3 to 5 years, both with the work that the government is doing and the research advancement that the private sector is making, we will have a far better digital infrastructure for healthcare than many other countries.
Okay, great. So you are saying AVA can be the game changer, the digital landscape of
Yes.
the healthcare.
Yes.
How it will be implemented? This is a, I think, major question because implementation of AVA is creating, I think there are a lot of challenges are there. So this we
Yes.
need to discuss. So do you
Yes.
have any idea how the government is planning to implement this AVA program?
Sure. Actually, ABBA today already has 52 crore, health accounts. So I think more than that, if 52 crores was as of February, which is published data. But if you take today's unpublished data, it's almost more than 60, 65 crores of people who have a ABBA health account. So one of the things that the government has done is digitize its own backbone. And therefore, where people are accessing any primary healthcare institution, any government healthcare institution, the ABBA ID gets created. The second thing that government has done is they've allowed seamless integration, the technology backbone that has got built for many of the private players to integrate with ABBA ID. The third thing they are doing is that because there are so many government welfare schemes like Ayushman Bharat, etc., they are trying to link these welfare schemes to ABBA ID. So therefore, then automatically that ability to be able to get the data in one place will happen. I think the real strength of ABHA will come when we are able to use the data that is coming from ABHA in a way to enable or improve the quality of care that's available for people. So the confidence improves. That's on the positive side. And on the, we're able to give people assurance that the confidentiality and security of the data that is available in ABHA, that is maintained. I think when this balance comes to play, more and more people will start coming on the ABHA network.
Okay, great. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving more information on the AVA because this many of the people who are not aware, they'll get benefit of it. So thank you so much once again. Friends, now we have another panel speaker. Miss Nikita Bose. Actually, she has very good experience on the startup side or MSME, and she has worked a lot on the government side also. So, Avaji, first of all, welcome to you. Sorry, Nikta ji, sorry. So, Nikta ji, we would like to understand from you this startup funding. Actually, if you see in comparison to the last 2023, in 2024, there is a decline in the overall funding from 17% to the startups. So, what do you think that what should be the specific measures or policy reforms and tax incentives for the startup funding from the government side so that the domestic and the international investors should attract toward the startup funding actually, which will boost up the startups also. So over to you, ma'am, and thank you so much for joining with us. So Nikta ji,
Namaskar.
can you?
Yeah, thank you so much. And a very, very good evening to all of you, all the dignitaries who are present, and my dear friends. I actually was enjoying the beautiful weather at the background of Sandhya ji, and I'm actually envying sitting here in Delhi NCR, getting and the climate changes that you were talking about, all was just going in my head. So, okay, so I'm extremely grateful to Resurgent India Limited for inviting me for such crucial discussion that is on the key sectoral expectations on the budget 2024. And also at the same time, I would like to congratulate you to, conceptualize such an interesting session with such speakers who are from different domains all across. That would actually add a lot of value to the viewers and the audience who is hearing you all together. And so when we're talking about the budget expectations of 2024, so as the union budget approaches, various sectors are abuzz with a lot of expectations for the significant policy shifts that may happen, or maybe, a lot of financial allocations that may happen altogether. So when we are talking about the startup ecosystem altogether, I am, and you also spoke that the startup funding has declined from 16 to 17% all across. I would like to share a small perspective from my side, which I have for the economy. So there is this family that I called the economy of India, and the parents are the government of India, and they have three beautiful children. The eldest one are the large corporates, the middle one are the MSMEs, and the youngest one are the startups. Large corporates are generally like the elder child of the family. They support the family, they are self sufficient, self reliant, and they actually, with their growth, the growth of the family happens. So as I say, when the large corporates grow, the economy also grows together. Then we have the MSMEs, they are like the middle child of the family, wherein they tend to toggle between the elder child and the youngest child. And at the same time, they are sometimes they're self-reliant, and sometimes they need a lot of support from the family as well. And a lot of growth contribution to the family is from this middle child also. At the same time, we have startups. These are like the youngest ones, and I would say for our country, they are the most pampered they are the most pampered child of the government, that I would say. And here, when you say post, I would say it was what, 16 January 2016, the large launch of the Startup India, an era of startups. Actually, it started like a forest fire. It just, an era actually started, and the government started to provide what, handholding support, funding support, and incentives for industry, academia, partnership, incubation support, acceleration support. There was a lot of support on the credit guarantee space also. There is a scheme wherein there is a credit guarantee support for the startups. Then we have this portal, which is like the elixir portal called the Startup India. For the benefit of audience, I am just giving the URL: startup www.startupindia.gov.in, wherein they can avail anything, right from getting the right mentors, the incubation support, the acceleration support, and having the financial and tax incentives, self certification, relaxed norms, and whatnot. Now, after this happened, not only government, a lot of private institutions also stepped in, like the NGOs came over, the Section 8 companies came over, a lot of educational institutions came over, a lot of private organizations came over to, register themselves as the incubators or the accelerators. And, that's how the ecosystem started to flourish in our country. And now we can see that the startup space is growing at an, incredible speed. Every college, every university has an e-cell, an entrepreneurial cell, just for the sake that, back in days when there was an innovative idea there in the minds of a young entrepreneur, he would go to whom? He did not even know whom to go, and that idea just used to die in the hands of ignorance. So that was the scenario, and now is the scenario: there is a dedicated e-cell in every college and university, and at the same time, they are also branching up to reach out to the right mentors and the right people altogether. And that is why I call the startups as the most pampered child of the government. And when we are talking today for the budget expectation, so as the budget arrives, we are expecting that a lot of bolstering up of the startup ecosystem will happen because of this budget. And in fact, as a recommendation from my side to the government of India, and a lot of discussion has happened also at the ministerial level as well, So both domestic and foreign investment is required into the startup ecosystem. This is something very, very imperative because investment is required, and the way this segment has boomed up, I believe uh, there is a lot of difference. There is a lot of credit gap, what we can say, in between the demand and supply of funding support. So first of all, at the policy level, the Startup India Seed Fund scheme that we generally called as the SISFS scheme, that should have an increased corpus because startups generally want funding at their initial stage. And if that kind of a support is given by the government of India, that would be important. Why? Because generally, because of lack of understanding, these startups fall in prey of private money lenders. And after that, you know what is the story. These guys, these startups, they, instead of concentrating on their own business, they tend to look for avenues how to repay back that money to those people whom they have taken it from. Number two would be that, obviously, as we talk about, the compliance structure for startups must be simplified. At the same time, some, support in terms of getting expert hand holding to the startup so that, they are compliant with whatever the norms they are for. And then number three, and the most important thing is getting the things done on a fast track basis, specifically approvals for the key sectoral startups. This is very, very important and imperative, and I believe something must come up in this budget for the compliance handholding part of it. Now, as far as the tax incentives are concerned, we always talk about how to, and in fact the startups, they tend to think that, okay, now I would be in a formal sector and I would be under the tax burden thing, and I would be under the bracket where I would be exposing whatever my holdings are. So as a startup, as a very, very novice, and what we can say, an infant child of the family, that person, that startup should be thinking more into getting the business flourished instead of thinking about how to get rid of such burdens on the head. So right now it is 3 years, the duration of the tax holiday. Now, I think that there might be some changes, and it might get, we are actually recommending that this must be increased up to, maybe extended up to 5 years. So let's see what happens on that space. Importantly, angel tax exemption is also one thing that can be introduced in order to provide more and more, robust exemptions for the angel tax investors at the early stage startup. So this would be like a win-win situation for both the investor and the startup. That investor will also get the benefit of getting the tax exemption, as well as the startup will get the funding support. Thirdly, I think capital gain tax relief may be introduced in order to offer tax relief on the capital gains for investments in the startups. This would actually attract more venture capital funding for the startups. And importantly, if I want to add to it, the investment in the digital infrastructure is very, very important, and this would must be promoted by the government of India in the startup space, because technology is at so much high speed and spacing so forward. So specifically, a skill development program may be relevant to AI, relevant to cloud infra, machine learning, IoT. This can be launched and developed for the startups by and large, so that they are abreast with the technology that is happening all across the world. And more so, there must be a lot of collaboration between the public and the private sector in terms of investing into the startup ecosystem. I think a lot of money is lying, redundant in the private space. And if some incentivizing model is developed across the government and the private collaboration, I think this would be a lot of relief would be, rendered to the startups that are looking forward to it. And at the same time, the most important part is research and development. A lot of R&D is required before launching a product, and startups, by the virtue of not getting the right aid and the right support from the ministry or from the ecosystem as well, they tend to go into the wrong direction. And we have seen a lot of startups failing as well. despite the fact that they are growing and growing at a faster pace, a lot of failures are also happening just because there was lack of guidance and lack of research and development on the specific startup space. So this is also one area wherein I think government must be doing something about it. And I think this is something I would, I can think about. This is one thing we can suggest. And also, when we were talking about the EODV part of it, when we were talking about the MSME space, I think EODB must be for startups as well. And when I told you a small gist about this metaphorical family wherein the startups are the youngest ones, so by the virtue of being the youngest one, they are also the naughtiest ones. I'm just telling you a metaphorical example. And at the same time, when they are naughty, they tend to, get into a lot of fights. So there is this terminology I'm using is dispute, and there is, as of now, a lot of loopholes are there in terms of dispute resolution amongst the startups. So my submission to the government would be to create an online dispute resolution system, or maybe an online portal wherein the startups can log in and get proper help at the Ministry of MSME level. Very recently, online dispute resolution system scheme has been launched for MSMEs, wherein a portal is created, and MSMEs can log into it, lodge in their complaint, support relating to mediation, arbitration, etc., etc. I'm not having the entire gist of it, but some good support is available for the MSMEs under that scheme. So something like that, similar to it, I believe something should be started for the startup space. Then when we are talking about incentives, then I think we can introduce, this is just a recommendation to the government, that we can introduce something like subsidized office space in any of the government offices. Maybe for the young startups, they look for office, they need some credibility also. So if they are instated somewhere in a government office, they would be like, we are working here. They would also have some stature in the society as well. So this is one thing. Then a lot of mentorship program, they are already happening under the Startup India initiative, but I think it is required in a more dynamic space, so that that mentorship happens and the startups don't fall prey to the wrong people. They don't get the wrong advice, and they don't end up getting into the things that they should not get into. This will also actually join them, network them to the most eminent industry experts all across. So they will get the value addition of that as well. And as I already said, R&D is required in terms of incentivizing also. So I think incentives relating to R&D, research and development into specific sectors for startups should be, launched by the government. That's from my side on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Niktaji. Thank you very much. I think you have very well covered many aspects for the startup actually. So there is a whole large list for the government actually from your side. So we hope so that the government, so we will send this video or some maybe white paper on that to the government also. Although whatever has to be done, it has already been done, the budget actually, because now Halwa ceremony is also been done. So I believe there will not be any change now, but
Right.
at least the people will know that what are the expectations of the experts from the government of India. May not be this year, maybe next year they can cover up some of the aspects actually. So thank you once again.
Thank
Sandhya
you.
I think you have some other meetings also. So we'll take the last question from you. So Sandhya you know that women are always neglecting their healthcare, health checkups also, healthcare also, health also, and the wellness programs also. And if you see the data, only 37% of the Indian women receive the regular health checkups. So what do you think? What should be the financial incentives to be given, introduced by the government to encourage more women to prioritize their healthcare and receive regular health checkups? Actually, this is one question which is very, very important because women health is very, very important because entire family is dependent on the woman actually. And the second question which you like to understand from you, that is what specific financial incentive packages would be the most effective in building up and the modernizing the medical infrastructure, especially in the rural and urban unserved communities. Because as you know that India has 60% population which is in rural areas actually, and the healthcare facilities are not that much up to the mark. So what should be the incentive packages should be from the government for the rural healthcare also? So over to you, Sandhya ji.
Oh. So on the women healthcare part, I think I would rather expand it to say preventive versus curative. I think curative medicine has historically taken precedence, but if you look at it in India, nine NCDs, non-communicable diseases, these are the primary causes of mortality. 66% of the death as per a 2019 statistics was because of NCDs. The economic burden of NCDs is 500 plus lakh crores. So that if you have to solve, you have to solve through a very holistic way: exercise, wellness, food and supplements, early diagnosis, health tracking. We need to have a holistic program that looks at everything. There is a lot of work that the Women and Child Ministry do in getting information around nutritional status of women and children. But with all this data, I think we need to now start mining this data, use that technology, and be able to make more proactive interventions to improve not just the health of women and children, but the health of the citizens from a preventive point of view. Now, the other part is the access to preventive infrastructure. And I want to combine your first and second question here. Access to healthcare infrastructure, especially in rural India and the distributed part of India, is today the healthcare money is fragmented across multiple initiatives. So at one end, there is a certain amount of incentive that is going, a certain amount of budgetary allocation that is going into the Ayushman Bharat mission, which is trying to cover more and more people into a universal healthcare program. And then there is a certain amount of money that is going into overall healthcare for the country. But with all of this money put together, we are still spending about 2% on healthcare. If you look at developed countries, they do 18-20% on healthcare. Even if you go to, say, countries in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, China, they all would do above 6%. So, which means that the pot of money that is available for healthcare is small. It may be a big number, but in size to the country and the needs of its population is small. So therefore, the way that dollar has to be spent has to be efficient. So we would believe that the government should look at significant allocation over primary healthcare, creating infrastructure in parts of the country where they don't have access to healthcare right now. If you see the healthcare infrastructure today, it's very lopsided. There is a lot of healthcare developed around tier 1, tier 2 urban centers. And there is hardly any infrastructure in rural centers. It doesn't make sense for private players to go and set up in rural areas because the economic viability is not there. So that's where the government has to play a more intense role. And to be able to cater to the urban poor, the government has to move from a universal health care to a universal health insurance. There is a certain level of insurance premium that is affordable for people. So if the government is actually able to promote more universal, low cost, accessible insurance for the urban areas and redirect a lot of its investment towards building capacity in the rural areas and towards preventive, I think that structural rebalancing will create a more holistic infrastructure. So it's a very large thing to do. It requires a lot of political will because it's not popular. That aspect of it is there, and it requires a lot of administrative effort to make it effective. But that's really the solution. But in the shorter term, I think while the government comes up with that kind of a structural solution, there is still a very heavy need for awareness and accessibility. Awareness is like more screening camps, more mindset of preventive. Anybody you take, you tell them that I want to do a preventive checkup. The immediate answer will be that, oh no, if I do a checkup, you will find something. But there is something to find just because we don't find it in time. So, for example, breast cancer. When breast cancer is screened at an early stage, it can be prevented. It can be a small surgery is what is required. But when it comes at a later stage, it becomes inoperable or it goes through a very intensive treatment, puts the person out of almost 9 months to a year out of their routine. So which means it's very important that awareness that people need to take preventive care of their health, and creating that infrastructure is something that the government should do in the short term, not just for women and child, but also for the population at large.
That's great. I think you have covered very well, Sandhya. I think the one thing which you have said, allocation, higher allocation on healthcare, or the rural healthcare actually. So but the prevention is always better than cure actually. So that is also important. And like affordable housing, the government has given a lot of incentives actually. So the same way the government can consider healthcare also. So affordable health can be a kind of some schemes which can come from the somebody who is setting up the hospital or maybe healthcare center in the rural areas. There should be some incentive to them. Then it might help to get more and more healthcare, the modern healthcare facilities backed by the digital infrastructure, which can save a lot of money on this, I think. So thank you very much for your views on that. Actually, that is helpful to us also and to the audience also, and some way that the people who are listening, or we will update it on the social media, or we will send it to the ministry also. So your views will be noted everywhere actually, and at some point will be covered in that also. So thank you very much, Sandhya ji, for this. Rituji, I'll come back to you. So Rituji, MSME is core for you actually, because you are advocating a lot on that. So the one thing which is called PLI for MSME actually. So what do you think that is it important, or what should be the areas which should be covered, and how it should look like actually the PLI scheme for the MSMEs? And you say that which are the sectors which you think that this should be covered also. So over to you, and thank you too much. Thank you to you.
Thank you, Ashish ji. Yes, actually, PLI, dedicated PLI schemes for MSMEs are very important in a way that they could help level the playing field and enable the MSMEs to compete with the large players in especially in the targeted manufacturing sectors where the presence is very less. Through these dedicated PLI schemes, they would be able to at least compete with them. And such type of schemes generally offer higher incentives to MSMEs to account for their small scale and lower the bargaining power compared to the large corporates. So, the eligibility criteria are for such schemes can be designed in such a way that to ensure that the participation from a diverse set of MSMEs across geographies and sectors can be done, and not just by large players. And this PLI schemes, I think, should be accompanied by measures to strengthen the capabilities of the MSMEs in the major areas like technology, skills, and quality standards, and not restricted to certain areas only. However, it must be ensured that the PLI schemes should have the adequate budgetary allocation and is implemented with clear, transparent, and objective selection criteria. So it's very important that these type of schemes should be included in the budget, and the proper budget allocation should be done so that it can be implemented more successfully. And in PLI schemes, the incentive structure, if you talk about the incentive, then the incentive structures can be designed to account for the economies of scale challenges which are generally faced by the MSME, such as providing higher per unit incentives, and and the provisions can be incorporated for the technology upgradation, skill development, and quality improvement, just to enhance the competitiveness of the MSME entrepreneurs or the beneficiaries. And apart from this, establishment of a robust monitoring and evaluation framework can be done just to assess the scheme's impact and make necessary adjustments over time. This is what required to get a dedicated and successful PLI scheme.
Okay, that's good actually. So you are saying the PLI should not cover only the production link incentive. This should be the other aspects should also be covered when the MSME PLI is there, so that it can be a holistic approach for the development of MSME check, for the growth of MSMEs. Good.
Yes.
So your views are very, very important for all of us. So Nikta ma'am, I I think there is one last question from you which you like to take up, which is related to the climate, the renewable energy, because this is an area where any discussion cannot complete without the discussion on the climate aspect actually. So, what do you think on the climate side? What should be the measures the government should take? Solar rooftop and other areas government is doing that actually. So, in terms of government take on the resolve the funding challenges to in the renewable energy sector, what do you think? What should be the areas where the government should resolve these issues and should make it easy for the developers or for the other stakeholders in the funding area for the renewable energy sector? Over to you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you. So as we, are taking upon the upcoming budget again, so, I think the emphasis on the sustainability, may also help the industry's focus. And, government will also have a lot of impetus in terms of the technology transformation or the sustainability, or what we can say, there is a very new word called eco-conscious solutions that can come over in today's era. So, when I'm talking about renewable energy, so it is an extremely promising sector, and I'm sure you have also covered it well in the initial presentation. So, it has actually a tremendous potential to attract investors from foreign countries, and also, a lot of partnerships are also attracted from the foreign investors, the FDIs and FIIs, and to facilitate the expansion on the international forefront, and thereby developing the companies and corporates of the country. I believe the government of India should do certain, should take certain initiatives that are, developing and flourishing this aspect of the renewable energy side. More importantly, a lot of emphasis is there on the green infrastructure part of it. So I'll actually, I think I'll have only 2-3 minutes because I think the time is running low. I will just share certain, key pointers in terms of the funding measures that may be, that may be introduced by the government of India. So the green bonds is actually, you have also covered, a lot of municipal corporations tend to issue a lot of green bonds, and I think this is also one sector when government can incentivize this structure. Then a PPP model should be created, and in order, because the private sector is more, strengthened in terms of knowing the technologies that are going, ahead in, on a global forefront. So getting the governance help from the government side, and then leveraging the benefit of the private sector, some model can be created in order to incentivize the green projects of the country. Then most important thing is the viability gap funding. So there is a project cost, and then there is a market price that we can say. So project cost is fixed, what we have prepared, and you are also a chartered accountant. You must know, if you propose for a project, the cost is fixed. It doesn't fluctuate with the market, and the market prices are fluctuating. So there is a gap. There is a constant gap that keeps on happening. कि किसी startup ने शुरू किया renewable energy पे काम करना, और MSME has started to work on a renewable energy product, and they projected a project cost, and then there was a difference while they, gradually on their way down. So there is a gap in between, and that gap is called viability gap, and that gap can be funded through a viability gap fund, VGF fund जिसको हम बोलते हैं, that can be funded through the government of India. So this is one more strategy that the government of India can go forward with. Then if you want to actually incentivize the renewable energy sector, a lot of tax credits and rebates may be introduced, for providing the investment in the renewable energy sector. There must be an accelerated depreciation on the renewable energy assets, so that the return on the investment is more than it is actually. Then sex subsidies on the technological and the innovation part of it should be there on the green projects. Obviously, you have already covered the rooftop solar and the all the green projects that are there, but government should focus on how these projects and interventions. Most importantly, that has come into boom is the EV installation, and the EV cars are like they are on the go. So this is also one sector which is a priority sector from the government standpoint. And I think interventions relating to promotion of such sectors must be, I can speak more and more. I have so many things, but the time is running short. So thank you. I think this is it from my side on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Niktaji. I think you have a lot of things to say. And we are sorry that we have a limited time actually, but two points which you have given, they are very, very important. The BGF for the viability gap funding, accelerated depreciation. I think these two areas should be covered where the renewable energy sector can get the boost on that actually. So I believe that this will happen later or sooner actually. So, friends, I think we have already crossed our time limit actually. And so I would like to thank you to all of you for joining with us. I think we had a good discussion. Our panel speaker given a lot of insights, lot of expectations from the government, lot of expectation from the budget. And I believe some of the areas which we have discussed here will be covered in that because these are areas which are very, very important for the growth of the country, for the growth of the economy, and for the better for the industry also, and the women also actually, because women is an important part of the entire economy where they are contributing a lot on many areas actually. So if you see that from the sector point of view, the like renewable energy or maybe MSME or healthcare, or the infrastructure, all these areas are there which will I think get some kind of incentive from the government. But there is no end of asking or no end of recommendation actually. But we hope so that whatever we have discussed, it is relevant from the topic point of view, and the audience who have joined us from the different part of the country, they will get some insights on that topic actually, and I believe there'll be some advantage to you. Now, I would like to thank you to the panel speakers, Nikta ji and Ritu ji and Sandhya ji. They have contributed a lot in the discussion. Your views are very, very important, and I would like to thank you for joining with us at very short notice and giving your valuable time to us also. It is really helpful. And I would like to thank you to all the audience from the different part of the country for joining with us on different channels also, social media also. And I would like to thank you to the Resurgent India team, this Ayush and Ankit, Devesh and the other team members for organizing this and making it successful. And let's see, I think now something around 72 hours is there, I will say. 72 hours are there, or maybe 3 days are there for the budget actually. So after 3 days, you'll know that whatever we are thinking, whatever we are discussing, whether it's really a reality or it's just a thought which we are doing. So thank you once again to all of you for joining with us. And thank you once again for joining with us. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Rajiv. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.